From one of Australia's former leading homicide detectives, this is I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
So now we've established two things. Firstly, you pulled over. You reckon you've seen Daniel. I said, and you're a liar. They'll kill you if they catch you. When you do come home, you really have to do a lot of combative surveillance just to get home, make sure no one's following you.
You haven't been declared to police that they've got someone in the
Exactly.
camp.
Yeah.
I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
In part two of my chat with retired Queensland Police Detective Dennis Martyn, Dennis told us some details about his interaction with Daniel Morcombe's killer, Brett Cowan. It was quite chilling what he had to say. We're going to go into more detail now, and I think for listeners who want to know what it's like being a detective and what's going through a detective's mind when sizing up a suspect, you're going to find this fascinating. It also gives us an insight in the pressures of being involved in a high-profile investigation and the robust nature of policing when the stakes are high. Criminal investigations are not for the faint-hearted, and there are always differences of opinions regarding how matters should be approached. I think you're going to find this part of the conversation fascinating. Dennis Martyn, welcome back to part two of I Catch Killers.
Thanks for that.
I'm really enjoying our chat, and it brings back a lot of memories in the policing and different experiences. In part one, we talked about your childhood, where you grew up in Moree, talked about your career in the army and then going across to policing and your fairly extensive undercover career within policing. Then you went to Task Force Argos, which was investigating child sex offenders, and that's how you got tied up with the investigation into the disappearance of Daniel Morcombe. I think when we left part one, we were talking about you'd been given a file, perhaps 2 weeks or 2 weeks after Daniel disappeared back in 2003, I think 7th of December 2003, to go and speak to call him a person of interest. It's just anyone that's on the list. Brett Cowan. What were your impressions when you went there? Talk us through what happened when you went to that location.
Yeah, look, my partner and I were driving along. It was a little near Palmwoods, nice little area. It was maybe half sort of acres here and there. Drove up the driveway. His house was on the front of the block. There was a house behind, and in hindsight, I now know that it was the pastor's house. He was one of the people that were sort of sponsoring him.
Right.
But anyway, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say kids' toys, but there were a lot of things around in the yard, like little windmills that he would make, that Cowan made, and all that sort of thing he would take to markets and sell. But they were painted in such a way that, to me, I thought a kid would want them. They were like butterflies on the blades and all this sort of stuff. So I said to Ken, straight away, I said, that's a bit strange, mate. It just looks like a kid's area. And I knew he didn't have any children at that age.
Yeah.
So he had a front porch out the front, which was a concrete, I guess, porch with no cover. And before we went there, I did read some witness statements. One of the witness statements said that on the left-hand side, going towards Nambour, there was a four-wheel drive with a black snorkel parked there.
Right.
During the time that Daniel was allegedly under the underpass waiting for the bus. So I kept that in the back of my mind.
Okay, so this is when you're getting your head around the circumstances of Daniel's disappearance. There was that four-wheel drive with the black snorkel.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. In the vicinity of where Daniel was last seen alive.
That's right. The vehicle itself would have been where the witness said it was. Directly across the road. But given that road was 2 lanes towards Nambour and 2 lanes the other side, it may have been 100 metres or 150 metres, but it was still there. Obviously, to observe. That's all you would do from there. So we drove in the driveway, and here is a white four-wheel drive with a black snorkel.
Okay.
And I said to Ken, mate, I think there's something going on here. This is a little bit, I don't believe in coincidences. It's a coincidence that, to me, is a key indicator that that person now becomes more of a person of interest, and to me, steps up the ladder towards a suspect. But that's just what it was at the time, on the observation of that car. So we hopped out and started a tape recorder running. knocked on the door, and out steps Peter Cowan, or Brett Peter Cowan. Now, he had some shorts on, I think, and a collared shirt. I think it might have been a white collared shirt. I can't remember now, but he was quite well, his hair was cut, he was shaven, but he stood in a funny way. He stood with his shoulders back a bit. He was a skinny sort of fellow, and sort of anything moving was accentuated, that's sort of the way he was. And he was very cocky. And straight away, I didn't like him. And I said to Ken, I said, just keep an eye on this bloke, mate. So we got talking to him, and we asked him where he was at the time, and he was very blasé. I don't know, really. I was around, and I said, we're going to have to sort this out pretty quickly, Brett, because I don't have all day to deal with dickheads. And you've got to be straight up. Well, I was straight up with these people. I don't have time to muck around with you. Well, I might have gone in and picked something up at Nambour. So then we were starting to get the picture of, okay, so you've gone to Nambour. Which way did you drive to Nambour? Anyway, so he said, I drove an underpass and all this sort of stuff. I said, did you happen to see a little child with black hair on the underpass on the other side near the bus stop? No, not at all. Never saw anybody. I said, but somebody has said that they saw your car. I said it was his car, parked on the other side of the road. I don't know how he said I never stopped. I said, I didn't say you stopped. I said, they said it was parked on it. I said, did you stop? No, it never stopped at all. I said, well, did you see a white car with a white four-wheel drive with a snorkel on it? No. I said, do you think it would be a coincidence that you drive a white car with a snorkel on it, it's a four-wheel drive, and someone's saying they saw something similar on that side of the road? I said, you're a pedophile, bad one by the sound of it. I said, and yet, I've looked at, and I was only bluffing at the time because I didn't have anything on there who the other children were. I said, that Daniel is in your age group. And he goes, well, he looked it. I said, oh, did he?
That's strange.
Yeah, I said, I thought you said you didn't see anybody. Oh, I might have pulled over. I said, oh. So now we've established two things. Firstly, you pulled over. You reckon you've seen Daniel. I said, and you're a liar. But we all know you're a liar because pedophiles are liars. So then he started to get cranky. Yeah. And I was really only trying to fluster him and get him sort of stirred up, And then his wife came out, and she happened to be not the prettiest little thing, and they had a young child. And I took her aside. I said, do you know the history of this fellow that you're married to? Oh, I know everything. I said, did you know that he raped and nearly murdered a young boy here in Queensland some years ago, and they did the same up in Darwin? No, I didn't know that. I said, do you allow him with your child alone? He said, of course I do. It's my husband. I said, well, do you know what happens when he takes a nappy off that child? So then she started to carry on and arc up a bit. And I was really only trying to get some sort of alienation between the both. Yeah.
And look, and people might be listening to this and go, is that what happens? That's what I think good police do. Yeah, you're going in there. You've got to, and I understand exactly what you're doing there. And if you go in, did you say anything? No, I thank you very much, sir, and walk away. That's not how the world operates.
No, and they'll tell you that every day.
Yeah. So I'm fascinated. Keep going with the story. Sorry to interrupt.
So after that, obviously, I've said to Cowan, I said, look, I disagree that you would have paid much attention to Daniel, given that you like little boys, particularly with dark hair. And Daniel was a little boy with dark hair. I said, if I liked blonde and big breasts, I said, and I noticed that, I would notice. It's simple. I said, you don't have to lie to me. I said, if that's what you notice, that's what you notice. I said, I'm not saying you did anything. I'm just asking you. Oh, well, I might have seen him. Yes, he was there. So at least I put him there at that time. Yeah. And that's a start.
That's a big start, and the way the information came out too,
yes.
Like holding it back and then under the pressure a little bit, and then gives you a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's
so
significant.
We tried to knock him off kilter a little bit, so he wasn't both feet on the ground. He was one in the air, and thinking, I don't know which way to go yet.
Yeah.
So then I said, well, I think we wouldn't mind having a bit of a look around inside your house. He said, what for? I said, I just want to have a little look if that's okay. And I had no right really. Yeah. But he said, oh, well, come in and have a look.
But you can ask.
Yeah, and he did. He said, well, come in and have a look. So we did. And I said to her on the side, I said, so when did he leave the other day on the 7th? And she goes, I think he left around lunchtime. And I said to Ken, keep him outside. So he was away. And then I said, well, when did he come back? She said, oh, around about 2-ish, 3-ish. I said, well, that's a fair time. I said, we're talking an hour or so, you know. I said, did he do anything strange when he come back? Yeah, he got me to wash all his clothes. I said, well, why would he do that? I said, did he do it on a regular basis? No. I said, well, I'm here asking you questions now. I said, are you just stupid? Or I said, can you see where I'm coming from? No. She said, no, I can't, you know. He's just a terrific fellow. I said, not a terrific fellow. I said, it's a pedophile. He's raped children before. You've got a child here. I said, how stupid are you? So I had to leave her because I just couldn't put up with her. She was just, some people are just stupid and you can't talk sense. They're like religious zealots. You couldn't convince them.
Doesn't matter what you say. They're not going to register.
No, it doesn't matter. So we got out and saw him, and he said, well, look, I was gone for a period of time, he said, and I went and saw a mate at Nambour and got a mulcher from him. I said, okay, who's this mate and all this sort of stuff. We got that. And we said, well, look, while we're here, Brett, we want to take your DNA, your fingerprints, not that we really need them because we've got them on file, but we'll take them anyway. And some other identifying particulars, some pictures of you and your tattoos and your car and whatnot. And he got a bit cranky with the car. Anyway, so well, that's all right. So we then left him after, we were there for maybe an hour, I guess. Left, and I said to Ken, I said, mate, if he didn't do Daniel Morcombe, I said, he's right for something, but I'm pretty sure that's who did it.
So I'm fascinated on a couple of points there. I think it's interesting that it's almost, sometimes it's a test where people don't arc up like you. I want to have a look through your house. Like if he had nothing to do with it, he'd probably stay staunch and go, no, piss off, you're not coming in my house. But he's trying to be compliant, and it's a real battle of the minds, isn't it? That point in time, because you don't know, you don't know, and you've got to push things to get a reaction so you can make an assessment.
Well, that's true, and if everyone remembers in the back of my mind and Ken's and my partners, we were still looking for Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel could have been in one of the rooms, could have been in one of the cupboards, could have been anywhere. So that house needed to be searched.
Yeah.
And whether it be done, with his permission or not, it was going to get searched, trust me.
And I think that's sometimes people forget that. And I when I took over the William Tyrrell matter, I felt that pressure too. Like, we don't know what's happened to William Tyrrell. So every inquiry you're making, you're wondering if this child's still alive.
Absolutely, because you'd be lifting up boxes outside in the garden, looking in the shed. Yeah. Because he could have been tied up there. There's no reason why he wasn't. His body hadn't been found at that stage. Yeah. So it could have been. It was quite feasible for him to still be alive and kept.
So you're there for about an hour. Certainly the indicators that or the things that you've told me there, I'm looking at red flag. You and Ken get back into the car. Tell us the conversation you guys have, because I always find it fascinating, the conversation, because you can't declare it in front of each other or in front of the suspect, but when you get back in the car, you can't wait to compare notes and get the other's insights. So tell us about the conversation.
Yeah, look, straight away we looked at each other and said, he's right for it. And if he's not, he's right for something, but we're pretty confident he's right for Daniel Morcombe. So we said, well, look, our next plan of attack will be we'll drive the route that he said, take times, take kilometres, and we'll go and see the alibi. Yeah. So we did that. It was around about 45 minutes.
So you did that straight away?
Straight away. Yep, straight away. It was that, I was that aware of it that I thought that everything else could wait.
Need to prioritise.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did that. And we went to the fellow that had the mulcher, because he did say sorry during the conversation. When he stopped at the mulcher, he had a cup of tea or something and chatted to the fellow. And we went to the bloke that had the mulcher, and he was going with his wife. Sorry, he was with his wife, and we sat down in his house. I said, Cowan turned up to get the mulcher. Where did you have a cup of tea? He said, you have a cup of tea. He said, my wife and I were going out to a party, I think it was, by memory. Yeah. He pulled up in the car, lowered his tailgate, we put the mulcher in, away he went. So I said, never stopped at all. No, he said, wouldn't have been any more than 5 minutes. So there we picked up another at least 20 minutes of his alibi.
And they're crucial things. Like the alibi is, that's you build a case on the alibi. If the alibi stands up, you're looking at the wrong person. But when someone's lying about their alibi,
that's right.
It gets your interest up straight away.
Yes, and the issue was that the way he allegedly went back home took him onto the same side that Daniel Morcombe would have been.
Right.
So what we're obviously looking at in that period of time, his vehicle was pulled over to site Daniel.
Yeah.
He's gone to get the mulcher. Didn't stay for long, and that mulcher would have been maybe 8 kilometres up the road. So a double-laned highway might have been 4 minutes to drive there, 5 minutes there by the alibi to say that's what occurred, and 6 minutes the other side. In that time, the bus has gone past, or the bus has broken down, the replacement bus has gone past, Daniel's still there, giving him plenty of time to come back. And in hindsight, we now know from his admission that what he did was he did go past and he did see Daniel still there, and he went back up and parked into the car park of a church where he used to go to church as a sponsor that lived near him at Palmwoods, was a pastor there.
Yeah.
And then he walked down the back way right next to Daniel.
Right.
And that's where he abducted him from.
Okay.
And that's Cowan's own words.
And so this is call it for want of a better word, a case theory that you're building on the timeline, that what he's told you, the suspicions that you've got from what he told you and the way he revealed the information. You've done that check. His alibi doesn't check out. Timeline doesn't check out in terms of his travel, and you've put him in the scene.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
okay. Well, I'm from a detective's point of view, I'm excited on this piece of information.
Yeah, look, we were excited, and obviously not excited to the way people would think, but we were thinking every step of the way this fellow's more for the job than what he's not.
Yeah.
You know? So we went back to the station at Maroochydore, got a few things sorted out, and we went back to his place of employment where he had his four-wheel drive. He was working at a tow truck business.
Yeah.
And took some pictures of his tyres and a few more pictures of the car, took some tread patterns of his car, just see if there was something on the other side of the road so we could say your car was definitely there. He admitted it, but we'd like to get some proof.
Yep.
Anyway, so that was that. So we went back that evening, put the full report together. It was that, we don't do that for every one of the people. Once their alibis, we just put a big tick and say it's, no good, blah, blah, blah. So we did a full report. We then made representation to the major incident room that, we really think we should brief you on this person.
Yeah.
He should be a main suspect.
Yep.
We were briefed. Ken briefed the major incident room the next day.
Yep.
And that was it. It was quietly dismissed.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So just and this is like the build up to it, but I just wanted to get a sense from you what you were dealing with at the time. So I'm looking at it. You've gone to make this inquiry. There's enough indicators there to get you excited about the inquiry. And when I'm saying excited, it's a horrendous crime, but from an investigative point of view, excited that you might be onto something. Your instinct and the information that you got, the alibi didn't check out. You've got him in the vicinity. He's opportunity, motive, and capability. That's what I always look for when I'm looking for a suspect for a crime, and he ticks all three boxes there.
He did. Yeah.
You've gone back. You've followed up the inquiries that you could make, and so people understand the working of a strike force, whether it be in Queensland or down here. All that information comes in at briefings. As you said, Ken briefed the major incident team and said, okay, this is our take on it. You've done the report, submitted that, and you would think that there would be some priority given to what needs to be done at that point in time.
Our report dictated that should have been the case.
Yeah.
The report was very... my reports are reasonably concise and very clear and accurate in relation to what recommendations should and should not be done.
Yeah.
The recommendations on that report were very clear. Basically, a summarisation of that would be, he is your main suspect. If he's not, he should be. Everything should be done to rule him in rather than trying to rule him out.
Yep.
And that's how it should be. And that's every possibility. That was covert, that was electronic, that was surveillance. And they never even went and seized his computers.
And so Daniel disappeared on the 7th of December 2003. Yourself and Ken spoke to Cowan about 2 weeks later. Brief task force members and compiled a report of their suspicions, what we've just talked about. In 2006, I think Cowan was again interviewed by the strike force because it was still unsolved. So
That's
you're
correct.
looking at 2003. Detectives have gone back to speak to Cowan at 2006. I assume you weren't working on it at that stage?
No, I was walking past the toilets on level 3 at the time and was called in. They said that they were going to get him to talk to him again. Could I give them some hints?
Yep.
I said, well, the biggest hint would be go and get this report that we wrote.
Yeah, yeah.
And they found the report.
Mm.
And they said, is this a report? I said, yes, it is. I said, and they said, well, he's moved to New South Wales now.
Right.
And I think he refused to come back for some reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was it. So that was that sort of...
Okay, so they've still got the report.
Yes.
You're, for whatever reason, the cycle's gone round. And, yeah, there's a lot of inquiries going on. I think you and I both understand that. You've got an instinct on that. I'm sure there's other cops have gone out and spoken to someone else that thinks, okay, maybe that person's good for it as well. But anyway, 2006, he's been interviewed again. I take it he's denied any involvement, or they couldn't gather any evidence on it. October 2012 and April 2011, a coronial inquest was held. So at this stage, Daniel's disappearance hasn't been solved. There's an inquest that's been held. On the 13th of August 2011, after an undercover operation, police took Cowan into custody and charged him. So that's 8 years later, or almost 8 years later. 21st of August, so almost a week later, a bit over a week later, Daniel's remains were located. 13th of March 2014, Cowan was found guilty of murder, and December 2018, the inquest was reopened after Cowan had exhausted his appeals. So Daniel disappears in 2003, and then 8 years later, Cowan gets locked up. He made admissions. There was an undercover operation, contested at court, convicted, and we've gone back to an inquest.
The whole idea of that coronial inquiry into the police investigation, that's what it was my understanding, was sold to me, because I was out of the police by then.
Yep.
It was sold to me that it was really to put ideas to the coroner so that he could make some changes, either legislative or policy and procedures within the police, to make such a thing easier for police all around for investigating into the future.
Yep.
I thought, great, that's a good thing.
A healthy thing.
So Ken and I got together and we said, what would you like to see happen? And so we both agreed basically on the fact that if, regardless of whether you're in the major incident room or you are not, if you are in our case, the two police detectives that are interested in Cowan, it should be our responsibility to investigate him 110% to the point we can say he is no way in the world he is a suspect or involved in the matter prior to us letting him go.
Yep.
And that was where we were coming from. That's what we wanted to put to the coroner, to say that these policies and procedures should be put in place so that something like this doesn't happen again and it can't be missed.
Right. I think I'll read out, probably the easiest way to do it is read out some extracts from a media article, report the findings of the inquest in 2018. So this is, as I said, an extract from a media article reporting on the findings of the inquest in 2018. The early police response to the disappearance of Queensland boy Daniel Morcombe did not pay enough attention to his murderer, Brett Peter Cowan, as a suspect, the coroner says. Findings have been handed down by State Coroner Terry Ryan on Friday, just over 15 years since the 13-year-old disappeared at a bus stop on his way to buy Christmas presents for his family in 2003. Mr Ryan noted Cowan was a known child sex offender and admitted being in the Sunshine Coast area where Daniel disappeared. I agree with the submissions from the family and counsel assisting that more could have been done to focus on Mr Cowan in the early stages of the investigation, Mr Ryan said. He also said claims made at the inquest by two police officers that they were rebuffed when they raised Cowan as a suspect could not be proven. So that last bit, two police officers, I'm assuming it's you and Ken, and it cannot be proven. Also at the inquest, Mr Ryan said on Friday, immediate police response was adequate and in line with policy. So adequate, there's a lot of interpretations there, and in line with policy. Given Daniel was likely killed within an hour of his abduction, his death could not have been prevented by police, he said. I think it's interesting for the public to get an insight into an investigation like that. Policing is robust, isn't it?
It is a robust situation, yes.
But people have opinions. I think you identified there's competing interests too, whether we've got resources and all that. Do you think the public are aware of this, what goes on in an investigation?
Look, I'm positive they don't.
Yeah.
I think that they think there's one person that takes charge, the rest are out to do whatever they are required to do by that, and they dictate back to the individual, and that person makes a decision.
Yeah.
It's not the case and should never be the case.
Yep.
Because everyone looks through a different set of eyes,
Mm.
and not everybody agrees with everybody on what has or has not happened.
It's an unfortunate situation too, isn't it? Like it's the ideal situation is that there's input from everyone. Someone's got to make the final call. Like there's got to be, like in the army, in the police, there's got to be someone that makes a final call. But it should be it's input from everyone. But I think what happened on that investigation, what's happened on countless other high-profile investigations, you hear them from overseas. The Madeleine McCain one, that all blew up. It just seems to be the nature of some high-profile investigations. And I've been in a position where I'm running investigations. I've had people put that in, but they don't fully understand the full picture of it. So I think we'd accept that you don't fully someone might, the inquiry that you and Ken have done, you've got your suspicions, but someone else might have some other lines of inquiry that take priority. So I think we give him the fair call there.
Yeah.
A couple of other things that you've brought up in conversations I've had with you, that the prolonged suffering of Daniel's family. And we're looking, with the benefit of hindsight, looking back. But I've got to say, from what you were saying back in the early days when you spoke to him, you have been proven to be right. It could have been you were wrong, and you would accept that. As fate would have it, you were correct. But if those lines of inquiry were followed up, perhaps Daniel's family wouldn't have suffered, and they're still suffering, but wouldn't have gone through the turmoil of not knowing what's happened, which adds to the pain.
It does, and I think there's two sides to that. That's one side that, and in hindsight, there's not much we could do about that. So time will march on, and unfortunately, he has passed, and that's terrible. But the other issue is, in that 8 years, you've got this terrible creature that has been roaming the streets. What victims have happened between then and his arrest that nobody knows about, haven't come forward, are killed and lying in a ditch somewhere that nobody has reported missing or has been molested. My good mate was the undercover that jumped on the plane with him from Brisbane to Perth and lived with him for some period of time. He was telling me a story that over in Perth he tried to molest a child on the railway lines. So he didn't stop doing what he does between 2003 and upon his arrest. He was still committing offences. So we had a whole line, nearly a decade of offending that we've allowed him to do because we had egos and we didn't want to rock the boat.
Yeah, when you put it that way, and like looking at the type of person he is, I'd say 100% he's committed other offences in that period of time. But look, the discussing with you about this, it just brings home how complex investigations are and all the personalities that come into play. I still think the way investigations, best practice, rely on facts, reporting, accountability. The sad thing with this is that the public's perception is that the police are all working together as one unit. I haven't met police that I know that a crime like this don't want to solve it, and as I wouldn't suggest you didn't want to solve the investigation or anyone working on it. But, when things become skew if and opportunities are missed, what you described in speaking to... I can only look at it from my perspective, from my experience as a homicide detective. What you provided there, that information... I was getting excited, and I think I used the word excited, but that's how I feel on the investigation. If I was told that information, if I was looking on this, there was a lot of indicators there, and it's a shame that it wasn't followed up on. But I'll sit here comfortably saying that's a line of inquiry. If that information was passed on the way you've relayed it here, I would have got very excited about following that up and would have given it a degree of priority.
Yeah, look, I think it was an opportunity missed. And
Yeah.
I agree with you that clearly there was nobody involved in that investigation didn't want the outcome to be as positive as it could be, and would not do anything to overturn, to turn every stone over to find the person or persons responsible. And we all talk about in the intelligence community, you get A1 intelligence and C2 and all that sort of stuff. We were A1. We were detectives. The evidence we got was first hand. Why wasn't it treated as A1 evidence?
Well,
It just wasn't,
it's a simple rule of thumb that I go: opportunity, capability, and motive. They're the three, and that's how I approach the William Tyrrell thing. Those three headings, and that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking at a suspect. What you just provided there from that meeting that you had with him in 2 weeks: opportunity, capability, and motive. Like tick,
Yeah.
tick, tick. That would have. He goes straight to the top of the list. I'm going to offer an opinion from a homicide detective's point of view. What you've relayed to me, that would have just be shining a bright light. I'd be looking at that, and that's not me sitting here with the benefit of hindsight. I've always talked about they're the way I approach these difficult investigations. I saw it early in my homicide career when you come in as the raw kid, and some of the people that I looked up to, my mentors and the people I aspired to be. What I found was how inclusive they were at the briefings, and it literally could be the most junior officer there would make the table would be open. Now, has anyone got any thoughts? And I watched the way they operated, and I'd like to think that I adopted that attitude, and that's certainly what I tried to adopt, is that listen to everyone in the room, take all the information on, because it can be someone's just viewpoint that might be the thing that clinches the deal. And again, breakthroughs on investigations like that, and I push this, and you've really brought me back into criminal investigation, like having the chat with you. You've got to take those wins when you can. So when you've seen something like that, and just the way that he changed from I didn't see him, I might have seen him type thing, that could be lost on people that don't have experience. But people that have experience, to me, that was, okay, that's something that interests me. Other people might go, oh no, he forgot about that before. It's the way that you look at things, and I thought it gave a real interesting insight into what good police do when they go speak to a suspect and what you're taking into account. And I read somewhere, you talked about it briefly, but just the fact that he tidied himself up, and you'd seen that in pedophiles before, after they commit the offence, it's, tidy yourself up and present as this good person and forget about the evil I've done.
Yeah, well, I've often had a bit of an argument with we have some police psychologists.
Yeah. They're always good to argue with.
Yeah,
they always tell you just got a father issue.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. But, I did have an argument there once with one, and she said, we can't pigeonhole people, Dennis. I said, of course you can pigeonhole people. I said, why can't you pigeonhole people?
Yeah.
I said, if he just rapes little boys, he's a homosexual pedophile. If he rapes little girls, he's a heterosexual pedophile. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And because that's what I bring that up because the other person they were looking at closely was a fellow called Jackway.
Yeah.
Now, he was an asexual predator.
Right.
So he would, males or females.
Yeah.
But he was more, yes, there was opportunity with Daniel, but it was more hunted from Daniel.
Yeah.
But this Jackway just sort of stumbled onto people, you know,
Right.
like he was walking along a track and he would find
Yeah.
that sort of stuff, He never sort of went out of his way as a hunter.
Yeah.
And yet Cowan did. He saw his prey, hunted the prey, and got his prey. That's what happened in every one of his occasions. And he was singular-minded in doing that.
Yeah.
He identified the victim, and that was always going to be the victim, that person.
They're the scary ones. They are predators, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Real predators.
Yeah, and he would, the description of the person seen laying or standing up next to Daniel was of unkept, unshaven, ungroomed, and scruffy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when we first interviewed him at his house, his hair was cut, he was well shaven, looked clean and tidy.
Yeah.
And then through that conversation, I asked his wife, and she goes, "Yeah, he's cleaned himself up a bit in the last." So straight away, and they go through the honeymoon period. They sit there on the computer and masturbate themselves and carry on looking at pornography, getting their heightened senses up, ready to do it.
Yeah, building up to it.
Yeah, and then go looking for a victim.
Yeah.
And then after they're finished, they're quite satisfied for a period of time. And then, they clean themselves up and have a shower, have a shave, and don't work 15 hours on the computer.
Just that, I feel like setting up a whiteboard and going, look, if I was briefing people on it. But, differing opinions on investigations, it's healthy, but... Yeah, sometimes it causes problems. There's casualties in investigations, but the priority should always be focus on, the good thing about, there is no good thing about Daniel Morcombe, it's such a sad thing, but the good thing is that Cowan's been taken off the streets and never getting out, and that should be the priority.
Correct, but
Yeah.
he will get out on parole.
You've got that strange setup in Queensland, haven't you?
Yeah, I have no doubts. He will see the light of day. Absolutely no doubts in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's
Let's hope not. But he will.
we'll get a platform started here, but that person should never. How he wasn't in prison for life with the case that Darren Edwards locked him up in the Northern Territory.
Absolutely.
It's disgraceful.
It is. I agree. And the whole justice system isn't a justice system.
Yeah.
It's a legal system that we use at the moment. Best we've got at the moment because there is no other.
Yeah.
But it's no justice involved.
The justice should be representing society, and society doesn't want someone like Cowan out on the streets. That would be a travesty of justice.
Agreed.
I think crimes of that nature, there'd just be a public outrage. I'd like to think.
You would hope so.
That would override. We're all entitled to redemption, but some people give up their right.
Agreed.
So you're enjoying post life out of the cops, out of the military?
Yeah, look, heavily involved at the moment with RSL.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff. But other than that, a lot of work, really, for me, more work than what I was doing when I was working. Yeah.
It's amazing that you when you do leave policing, where you think your life is all consumed, you manage to find things and you think, how did I have time to do those jobs? Yeah. But look, I've really enjoyed the chat. It's been a long time coming. I want to thank you for your military service for the country, your service to the community as a cop, and the fact you're one of those cops that care. And I mean that. It means so much that people like you actually care about what's going on, and you do make a difference. So, yeah, full credit to you. Thanks for telling the story and what you've been through, and I hope all the best for the future.
All right. No, thanks very much. And it's been an honour to talk to you. It's been a privilege.